Hello, everyone. We're going to wait another 30 seconds or a minute or so to let people continue to trickle in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Murdoch Trust Scientific Research Funding Priorities and Updates webinar. My name is Jenna Watson, and I'm Communications Associate at the Murdoch Trust. I'm here with Erin Putsky, Vice President of Scientific Research at the Trust, and Elaine Charpentier-Philippe, Acting Program Director for Education. Before we dive into today's content, I just want to share a few announcements. First, we do have live captioning available for today's conversation. So to turn that on, click the three dots near More at the top of your screen, and then Language and Speech, and then Show Live Captions. Next, just a quick note on scope. Today's session focuses on sharing process updates for our scientific research focus area ahead of the submission window opening on March 9th. So we'll cover updates to scientific research and strategic projects only, and we will not be covering Murdoch Trust programs or initiatives. Next, if you haven't yet watched our general grant-making updates webinar from March 2nd with Chief Program and Impact Officer Pauline Fong, we strongly encourage you to do so. That session covers some overall eligibility requirements and important context on why the Trust has focused its funding priorities, including the unprecedented demand we've seen with more than 3 times our historic average number of LOIs submitted in our last submission window. So due to that really high demand, we are focusing our funding priorities, updating eligibility guidelines, and adjusting our submission windows, all of which you can learn about in that general grant-making session. So we'll share that recording as well as some resources for nonprofits in a follow-up email. But for today's conversation, here's the agenda. Erin and Elaine will walk through a brief presentation, sharing some updates. Then we'll address pre-submitted FAQs from registration, and then we'll open it up to you all for live Q&A. So please be submitting your questions in the Q&A box throughout. That's it from me for now. So Erin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jenna. Welcome, everybody. We are so glad you're here today and appreciate your time. I really first want to thank everyone for being on this call. Scientific researchers and educators, administrators, everyone who helps make scientific research grant making possible. Really, thank you for the ways that you serve your institutions and communities through your work. You know, there's a lot of changes going on in higher ed, and we want to continue to be a foundation that supports the hard work that you do, even in those times of change. I also want to give a brief overview of the scientific research focus area here at the Trust before getting into our specific updates. Scientific research is one of 5 focus areas at the Murdoch Trust, and in this area we offer grants and programming that contribute to leading edge research and education across a diverse collection of scientific disciplines. Like all funding at the Trust, this goes back to our mission, which is to build capacity in nonprofits driving innovative and sustainable outcomes across the Pacific Northwest, and our vision of human flourishing for the common good. Our specific areas or aspirations for this area are scientific innovation enhances and sustains human flourishing, create new knowledge and train brilliant scientific minds, and educate an inclusive and vibrant professional and scientific community of practice. We invest in this area because our benefactor, Jack Murdoch, believed deeply in the potential of science to serve the common good and unleash human flourishing. So thank you all for being institutions and people that help contribute to that vision of Jack's. So really briefly, before we get into things, I want to cover some terminology, some of which you might not hear today, but because of what we're going to announce today, there are other areas of the Trust that you may want to either see the webinars that they offer or watch the recordings later, and some of this terminology will be used when it comes to eligibility guidelines on our webpage and other web pages at the Trust. None of this necessarily applies to current scientific research guidelines, like I was just alluding to, but it's helpful for you to know as you encounter this across areas of the Trust. The phrase on pause means funding for that area is temporarily on hold while we refine our strategy and conduct further research to determine eligibility. The term deprioritized means it is not actively funded at this time, while the term ineligible means it is not eligible for funding. So as you hear these different terms, it's just helpful for you to be aware of them and how we see or define them. So now I'm going to walk through some updates to our process that affect specifically higher education institutions, although I know some of you with us today might be from the private biomedical research institutions as well. So you're welcome to stay and join us, but the parameters and eligibility for you have not changed at this time. So to walk through what's going on in higher education, just to remind you, previously all higher education institutions applied to the Trust through the scientific research area, even if the grant wasn't focused on scientific research. We're changing that. So now non-science higher education grants are managed by their appropriate focus area. We have some examples up here just so you can kind of see what we mean by that. Really what we're trying to do is align a proposal that you bring to us to the best expertise here within the Trust. I'm not going to go into more detail on that because my colleague Elaine, who's here with us, is going to explain more about that. And I specifically asked her to be here so that you could see and meet her and know that she's somebody that you will be interacting with in the future when it comes to non-science research proposals. So for this process, you're still going to apply for these science research instrumentation grants using the Scientific Research V2 button, which you know is at the bottom of our submittable grants portal. However, for non-scientific research higher ed grants, you're going to be using the Strategic Projects V3 button. So one thing that Elaine will go into is you'll notice not much change in the scientific research instrumentation granting pipeline. But one of the things we really want you to be aware of is when you submit a proposal to the strategic projects, other areas of the Trust, this impacts grant competitiveness. And so projects are going to be evaluated differently along with projects in that focus area. So that's one thing that Elaine, again, will talk about a little more, but we just want you to keep that in mind. Okay, here's kind of the big update for us when it comes to scientific research instrumentation grants. We're updating the submission frequency. So previously, different institutions had sort of different guidelines and parameters. Tier 1 institutions, which are the research-intensive, larger public universities, could apply 3 times every 2 years. And then Tier 2, which are the smaller public institutions and private undergraduate research, PUIs, primarily undergraduate institutions, could come once every 3 years with a presidential priority. What we're doing now is to make it easier for people on both ends, both your end and ours, to keep track of is any eligible institution may now apply for scientific research instrumentation grants once per year. All the other parameters are still in place regarding your eligibility and also the match requirements, but we just wanted to simplify and streamline that so that everybody could keep track of it better, and also to give you opportunities when you had them. So beyond that, higher education institutions can now apply to one other focus area here at the Trust once per year. Elaine is going to go into that in more detail, but those are separate. And the reason I wanted to say that is you don't have to choose one or the other. You can apply for scientific research instrumentation and also apply to one other area at the trust per year. So you don't have to choose between those. So this is kind of what it looks like just visually. On the left, scientific research, the equipment grants, all eligible institutions of higher education, you now have a submission limit of once per year that you can come to us. Over on the right, we have the other 4 areas of the trust. You can all apply. You can apply once per year, but only to one area. So the other thing before I hand it over to Elaine is we really want everyone to start submitting in our 3 cycle periods per year. The reason why is we're trying to bring scientific research into alignment with the rest of the trust. Previously, you've been able to kind of submit on a rolling basis throughout the year, which worked just fine. We now have fewer decision meetings per year, and we've assigned or defined 3 periods where all other nonprofits can submit. So we want to bring scientific research into alignment for that. Really, it's going to make it easier for you just as much as it's going to be helpful for us. Again, I want to reiterate that we have had a significant increase in requests for funding. Our demand has gone up tremendously in this last year for many of the reasons that you can probably guess. A lot have to do with federal funding issues, but also the needs for many organizations have gone up significantly. So this is going to help us all to make defined windows for application. The nice thing is, you know, when the period opens that you can submit, you also know when you will get your decision. So it's helpful, and you can just decide any period during the year to apply. You don't have to choose one or the other, but you know if you apply in period 2, you will get your decision in April of the following year. Oh, sorry, Jenna, if you wouldn't mind going back. Thank you. The note up here on the right, we wanted you to know, you might hear language about this coming period, especially. We are capping the number of LOIs that can be submitted. That only applies to strategic projects or the SP grants. It does not apply to the SR research instrumentation grants. So I just don't want you to feel like you have to rush to get an LOI in when you want to apply. Those will not be included in the total pool from a cap perspective. So now I want to hand it over to Elaine, who's going to give you some more important details about being able to apply to these other areas of the trust.
Thanks, Erin, and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. To just expand on what Erin shared earlier, this is a shift for our four-year institutions from what was previously known as projects that would be identified as the president's highest priority. We are now welcoming all of our four-year institution partners to submit one request that falls under the strategic projects requests for the trust that highlights one of our other 4 focus areas. So you see them there listed on the slide. The great thing about this is that when you visit the website, each of the focus areas have a jump link and will take you directly to that area's outcomes and projects and eligibility guidelines, and that should make it much easier for you to understand whether or not the project you're thinking of aligns with a specific focus area. So we're asking that when you submit your LOI, you very clearly tell us which focus area it aligns with and how it will further or bolster the outcomes defined in the aligned focus area. This is really important as it both brings clarity for you all as you're thinking about a strategic project that you might submit to the trust. And it also continues that learning and bolsters the outcomes and helps us to understand how to deepen the strategies in each of those focus areas. What's also important to know is that we still want to hear from you in your LOI that you have support from your department or university leadership for submitting that strategic project. The submissions are going to be limited to one non-SR request per year per university. And if that project goes to full application and to a trustee meeting and a decision is made to fund your grant, it's important to know that strategic project guidelines say that you can only submit one project for funding every 3 years once it's been funded. Another thing that we want you to know about this is that we are very interested in understanding how our four-year institutions and post-secondary partners writ large are thinking about the future of higher education. We know that the college enrollment cliff and the way that AI integration and AI impact on durable jobs is having on the way that you're thinking about degrees and organizing learning and partnerships and collaborations. We welcome you to submit projects addressing those for your institution as well. So that covers changes and updates we wanted to share. I'm going to pass it back to you, Jenna.
Great. Thank you, Erin and Elaine, for that helpful presentation. We received some questions during registration, so we've selected and grouped together some of those to address here. But as a reminder, if you have questions now or if you have them throughout their presentation, feel free to submit them using the Q&A box at the top of the screen, and we will address those in a couple of minutes. All right, so first question from registration. What kind of projects are considered scientific research? Are they only STEM disciplines, or could they include social sciences and other disciplines?
Yeah, that's a great question. So because our scientific research instrumentation grants are exactly that, we tend to fund the traditional STEM disciplines because they're instrumentation grants. We're not funding individual research projects. And we're not technically even, we encourage collaboration, which we can talk more about in a minute, but we're funding the instrumentation itself. And so that's why we typically don't fund social sciences and other disciplines, because it's about equipment, and a lot of those other projects don't require the intense research equipment.
Another question we got, will the undergraduate research conference be held in 2026?
Yeah, so if you didn't hear at the research conference in last November, we paused the MCSR conference for 2026 because we are doing an external evaluation of the program. And when we do that, it's just easiest to pause it to allow us to do a really deep dive into the evaluation, as opposed to trying to organize and run a conference at the same time that we're trying to have it evaluated. So it's on pause for 2026.
Great, thank you. And last question, what are your research priorities? Do you prefer a grant for a single discipline, or would a multidisciplinary project interest you more?
Yeah, so our research priorities are, again, going back to our mission, it's about human flourishing. And so we're really moving into spaces where we're looking at impact from the perspective of innovation and training and application to human flourishing. And so it could be human health, but it could be environmental, it could be more technical. But our priorities really are moving into a space of how do we ensure that we're moving human flourishing forward? And because of that, we're moving much more toward a space of multidisciplinary projects, collaborative projects that bring more investigators together to make a larger impact. So getting back to the notion that except for our initiatives, we really don't fund individual projects, and our priorities are in a space where we want to see lots of people wanting to use scientific research equipment for different things, because we know that that can amplify the impact.
Great, thank you, Erin. All right, now we are going to turn to live audience questions that you've been submitting throughout the session. Looks like we've got a few here, but if you just joined us or if you've been thinking of a question, feel free to submit it in the Q&A box once again. All right. First question, do you have guidance on the amount typically requested in either the instrumentation or the strategic projects?
Good question. I'll answer first, and then I'll let Elaine take the strategic project one. The guidance on instrumentation is really ask what what you need. So because we have the match requirement, it's, well, what's the equipment you need? And really the encouragement is to get what you need for the collaboration, the project, whatever. So don't base your request on how much you think we might give you, because we want to be supportive for what you need. So one of the things that we do when we do the project reviews and ask other experts in the field is this what they need? Is this the most appropriate? There are times when we've gone back to people and said, hey, there's another model out there that's sort of an upgrade that reviewers have said could be more appropriate. Would you consider going for that one? So that's the guidance. We don't have a numbers guidance because it completely depends on the piece of equipment or set of equipment that you're asking for. It's just we always have that match requirement in place to keep in mind, so that your end of it is going to require the one-to-one.
Yeah, that's a great question for strategic projects. I would say that similar to Erin's response, I think it's important that your budget for your project reflect what you need for your ask. I would offer that if your LOI is invited to full application, you might get feedback from a focus area director that asks you to, refine or limit or cap the amount that you're requesting from the trust. If you have questions about your project specifically when you're working on the LOI and wondering if you're within a range for the size of your project, you can always submit a question to the grants at email address, and someone will provide feedback.
Thank you both. That's really helpful. All right, we've got a question from Caitlin here asking, can you please clarify this statement? If awarded, each institution is eligible to submit one project for funding every 3 years. So if we are funded, we cannot submit any applications the following year.
Great question. And we knew that this would be particularly confusing for our scientific research and for your institution partners. So within the strategic projects request, so that would be a focus area and other than scientific research, and for a project that is non-scientific research, technology or equipment related, yes, that is true. If you submit, you may submit one LOI or application per year per focus area. If that application goes to a trustee meeting and there's been a decision to award that grant, then you will need to wait 3 years to come back from the award date.
And that's just to add on to that, that is distinctly different. So in the SR, the instrumentation grants, you can come once per year, and that's regardless of whether you get funded or not. So that's, as Elaine was saying, one of the big changes that we want people in higher ed to see is if it's what we call a strategic project or the SP button, then you can apply once per year until you get funded. Then you have to wait basically until your grant is out before you can apply again. Whereas in SR research instrumentation, you can come now once a year, keeping in mind that the one-to-one match is still in place.
Thank you both. Yeah, so maybe a similar question, just to clarify. So scientific research instrumentation grants are not considered strategic project grants. Is that correct?
For your perspective, yes. It's easier to just keep the word strategic out of the scientific research part, because then it gets all confusing.
Makes sense. All right, Mike has a great question. Does the 3-year wait apply retroactively? If we got a grant in 2024, do we have to wait until 2027?
Sorry, was that strategic or scientific research?
Not specified in the question, so maybe we answer it for both. I'm guessing if it's asking about a 3-year wait, it probably would be a strategic project grant.
Yeah, then I would say if it is a strategic project, it would be 3 years from the trustee meeting month in which the grant was decided.
But if it was a scientific research instrumentation grant, it would be eligible for a new one. Correct?
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and Mike just clarified. Yeah, scientific research, yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe to be clarify here. The new parameters are effective immediately. So it's not sort of, all right, well, we're going to do the 3-2 thing until a certain time, and then we're going to start. It's effective immediately. Everybody can come once per year. And if there's a question, obviously I will interact with you individually about that.
Great. Thanks for the question, Mike. All right. Let's see. What support is there for strategically growing collaboration through shared facilities?
So I will say this. There's more coming later this year about additional changes in scientific research here at the Trust. It's a good thing for everybody, but we are moving more into a space where we are going to ask people to submit proposals that are much bigger, especially when it comes to collaboration and shared resources. So we're going to ask people to lean into that more to really help us understand how many users there will be both internally and externally. So the goal is that we can make a bigger impact. So I'll just kind of leave it at that because we're polishing everything up. And then later this year, we'll make announcements that kind of tell you everything all at once. But that's always a priority, regardless of kind of what happens later this year, that shared resources are a priority that we want to be supportive of.
Thank you, Erin. All right. Do you have examples of the types of higher ed projects that would fit in the other focus areas?
Sure, I think we could both tackle this, Erin. And in addition to the projects that were on one of the first slides that Erin shared, we have seen collaborative projects focusing on developing mental health practitioners. That would be a project that would probably be assigned to the health and environmental stewardship sector. If we had a project from a university that or from higher ed to build a new or renovate a museum, that would likely be an artistic and cultural expression. Some of the more like crosswalky workforce development things might be represented in education and leadership development if it was truly just an opportunity to build out a new career pathway for an undergraduate learner or a graduate program.
Yeah, I think that I would just add, folks in higher ed are used to interacting with the Trust in a way that generally has to do with science equipment or buildings or that kind of thing. And when they haven't been, the request has come through scientific research anyway. So to reiterate, we're just trying to align with the expertise here at the Trust when it comes to reviewing proposals. So the biggest thing is if you have, let's say, equipment for a new health program, like a nursing program of some sort, then that won't necessarily come to me because it's science equipment. If it's equipment that's being used for educational purposes, it will more likely go through Elaine, right? That doesn't mean we're going to exist in a vacuum without being in conversation with each other about things and other areas as well. We're always in close conversation, but it's just going to be, moving things into spaces where the leaders are more aligned with that expertise. I think I would add to that, though, we are trying to encourage people to just sort of expand and think about, well, are there areas that you haven't applied for before because you didn't feel like you were eligible for it or that it wasn't a good fit? So really go and read the web pages of each area and look at the guidelines and eligibility and see if there are people at your institutions coming to you with ideas that you might think, oh, that's a good fit now. We can actually do that. It's just a different process for you.
Really helpful. Thank you both. We are nearing the end of our time today, but if you had a question that we didn't have a chance to answer, please email that question to grants@murdochtrust.org and a grants team member will get back to you. And just a few other reminders for everyone attending before we wrap up. Within 48 hours, you will receive a follow-up email from us that will include the recording of today's session, the link to the general grant making session that we spoke about earlier, and a link to a brief post-webinar survey. We'd really encourage you to complete that survey if you're able. Your feedback really helps us to improve these sessions and make sure we're providing the information you need in the most helpful way possible. So with that, thank you so much, Erin. Thank you, Elaine. And most of all, thank you everyone for attending and joining us and for all the work that you do in scientific research. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.